When the trees speak your name, you learn that some whispers should never be answered. Anya had always loved camping. The crackle of a fire, the smell of pine trees, the clear night skies. It was her escape from the monotony of office life. So, when her friend Sarah suggested a weekend trip to the Whispering Woods, she eagerly agreed. The forest had a reputation for being one of the most secluded in the area, with miles of dense trees and trails that seemed to go on forever. It was the perfect getaway. The first day was everything Anya had hoped for. They set up camp in a small clearing, cooked over a fire, and shared ghost stories as the sun dipped below the horizon. By the time they crawled into their sleeping bags, Anya felt a rare sense of peace. But that night, she woke to a sound she couldn't place, a soft, rhythmic whispering carried on the wind. At first, she thought it was the rustling of leaves, but as she lay there, she realized the sound was too deliberate. It was as if someone, or something, was whispering her name. Anya! Her heart raced. She sat up, straining to hear more clearly. The sound was faint, almost drowned out by the chirping of crickets, but it was unmistakable. She glanced over at Sarah, who was sound asleep in her tent. "Hello?" Anya called out, her voice shaky. The whispering stopped. The next morning, Anya told Sarah about the whispers. "Probably just the wind," Sarah said, brushing it off. "This place is full of strange sounds. Don't let it freak you out." Anya nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it had been something more. As they hiked through the woods that day, she kept catching glimpses of movement in her peripheral vision, shadows darting between the trees. Each time she turned to look, the forest was still. By the time they returned to camp, her nerves were frayed. Sarah noticed and suggested they build a bigger fire to ward off the chill and lighten the mood. As the flames crackled and popped, Anya began to relax. They cooked dinner, laughed, and talked late into the night. But when Anya woke again in the early hours, the whispers were back. Louder this time and closer. "Anya, come closer." She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The voice was coming from the woods, just beyond the edge of their campsite. Slowly, she unzipped her tent and stepped outside. The fire had burned down to embers, casting long shadows across the clearing. "Who's there?" she whispered. The forest remained silent. Then, just as she was about to retreat to her tent, she saw it. A figure standing among the trees, shrouded in shadow. It was tall and thin, its outline barely visible in the dim light. Anya's instinct screamed at her to run, but she found herself rooted to the spot. The figure didn't move, but the whispers grew louder, echoing all around her. "Come closer, Anya." Suddenly, Sarah's voice broke the spell. "Anya? What are you doing?" Anya turned to see her friend standing at the edge of her tent, rubbing her eyes. When she looked back toward the trees, the figure was gone. The whispers had stopped. "Did you see that?" Anya stammered. "See what?" Sarah asked, frowning. "Anya, you're shaking. Come back to the tent." Reluctantly, Anya followed her, but sleep didn't come easily. The image of the shadowy figure lingered in her mind, along with the chilling sound of her name being whispered. The next morning, Anya insisted they leave. Sarah protested, saying they still had another night planned, but the desperation in Anya's voice convinced her otherwise. They packed up quickly and began the hike back to the car, but the forest seemed different now. The trails they had followed so easily before felt unfamiliar, the trees pressing closer together as if trying to keep them in. The air grew heavy, and the sunlight barely filtered through the thick canopy. Then they heard it. The whispers. This time it wasn't just Anya's name, it was both of them. "Anya, Sarah, stay with us." Sarah's face went pale. "What the hell is that?" she whispered. "Run!" Anya shouted. They sprinted down the trail, the whispers growing louder, almost deafening. Shadows darted between the trees, Too fast to be human, Anya didn't dare look back, focusing only on the path ahead. Finally, they broke through the tree line and stumbled into the parking lot. Their car was the only vehicle there. They jumped in, locked the doors, and sped away without looking back. Anya never returned to the Whispering Woods. She and Sarah tried to rationalize what had happened, blaming it on sleep deprivation or overactive imaginations, but deep down, they both knew the truth. The woods were alive, and they had narrowly escaped being claimed by them. What do you think was calling to Anya and Sarah? Share your theories in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. Until next time, remember not every place is meant to be explored.